Good evening, everyone. I'm Lynn Fridley, Program Coordinator for Maddie's Institute. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's presentation is the second in our summer webcast series and is sure to be an interesting topic. Everybody wins, learning how to change the way animal groups and veterinarians work together. Our speaker tonight is Christy Keith, a communications and media consultant for Maddie's Institute. Christy is also the social media manager for the Shelter Pet Project, which is the first public service campaign to promote an animal welfare cause in the 60-year history of the Ad Council. Christy also consults on social media and communications for a number of veterinary and animal welfare organizations, as well as for prominent experts in the field like Dr. Marty Becker, the veterinarian on the Dr. Oz Show, and Good Morning America. Before we get started tonight, there's a few housekeeping items that we need to cover. Please take a look at the left-hand side of your screen where you'll see a Q&A window. That's where you will ask questions during the event. Christy is allowing plenty of time for questions tonight, so please don't hesitate to ask. If you need help during the presentation, click on the question mark at the bottom of your screen. There are other small images there called widgets. The green File widget will take you to the resources that we wanted to share with you. These resources will also be available after the presentation on our website. Before I turn things over to Christy, I want to say a few words about Maddie's Fund. We are the nation's leading funder of shelter medicine education, and it is our goal to help save the lives of all of our nation's healthy and treatable shelter dogs and cats. Our founders, Dave and Cheryl Duffield, were going through a difficult time in their life, but each day they were greeted by the little dog with the indomitable spirit. Maddie's unconditional love inspired them to promise her that if they ever made it big, they would honor that love by helping make this country a safe and loving place for all of her kind. With hard work, their dreams did come true, and they honored their promise by creating Maddie's Fund and focusing their efforts on revolutionizing the status and well-being of companion animals. We hope you'll take what you learn here tonight and continue to make that vision a reality. Welcome, Christy. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks so much, Lynn. It's always great to be here with my Maddie's Fund family, and I also want to say how very, very glad I am to see all the people who are attending this tonight, and I want to thank you for being here. And I know that every speaker always thanks everyone who comes to their presentations, and so I have thanked you, but I'm particularly grateful that you're here, and I'm going to explain why in just a minute. And but before I start, I wanted to get an idea of who's here tonight, and so I'm going to start out with a couple of questions for you. Please answer them right on the screen, not in the Q&A window. The Q&A window is for questions, but for your poll responses tonight, please just click the box right on the screen. The first question is I'd like to know is, do you work in a private veterinary practice? So not a shelter veterinarian, not in a shelter or rescue group, not in some other field, but do you work in a private veterinary practice? So just go ahead and click yes or no and then submit. And since that's a short question, I'm going to just go ahead and click over here to the responses. So we have relatively few veterinarians here tonight, and so 7.8%, most of you here are not in a private veterinary practice. I should say there are relatively few private veterinarians here tonight. There may be some shelter vets. I hope there are. So we'll move on to the second question, which is, do you work or volunteer in an animal shelter or for a rescue group? So simple yes or no question, and then click submit. So I will wait a couple minutes here.
I suspect we'll have like a high percentage of people that work in an animal shelter or rescue group on this question. Christy?
Yes, I'm going to guess this one's going to blow the... Yeah, so 88% of you work or volunteer for a shelter or rescue group. Okay, thanks very much, because that does help me know where I'm going to focus my comments tonight. But veterinarians, do not leave, because I have information for you too on getting the most out of working with shelters and rescue groups, and it is not going to be the same old, because I myself am also tired of hearing the same old suggestions that I don't think are really working for either of our communities. So I'm now going to show you the number one and really almost the only reason why I'm incredibly glad to see so many people here tonight, and that is simply this. No matter where on the life-saving spectrum your community is, you cannot achieve a goal of saving all healthy and treatable pets without veterinarians. We need them to spay and neuter so we can reduce intake, to provide infection control information, oversight in shelters, to work with us on enrichment and stress reduction as we focus more on adoption and animals are staying in the shelters longer. We need them to care for the pets in our foster homes. And as we get closer to our national no-kill goal, we need them to provide veterinary care to the pets with treatable and manageable conditions, both in our shelters and foster homes, and also once they're adopted into their new homes, and especially as we become more educated on how to place pets while they're still being treated, or pets who have manageable conditions. These pets need veterinarians immediately. We need to have great working relationships with the veterinarians in our communities so that we can become a no-kill nation. Without working with veterinarians, this is simply not going to happen. Unfortunately, in many places, veterinarians and the shelters and rescue groups are not on great terms. I'm sure that's no surprise to anyone to hear. And that's not just unfortunate because it prevents animals from getting care, but because it actively harms both sides of this equation, and in tangible ways that translate into dollars and cents, I promise you. It hurts veterinary practices' bottom lines, and it makes running a shelter or rescue group more expensive and more difficult. And I'm going to just jump into some of the things. I've heard these things. I'm sure everyone here has heard them. Some of you may have even said one or two of them yourself. Okay. I hear these things all the time, especially online. I hear them from pet owners. I hear them from rescue groups. I hear them from people who work in shelters. The same 4 basic concepts. And I want to walk you through why we think these things, and because it's not without some rational basis that we believe these things, even though, in fact, they're not true, but we've come to these conclusions in a way, and that is based on a perceived fact. And I also I really hope that this presentation will help you all mend this rift, because it is hurting all of us. And I'm not just going to be asking vets to do more. I'm actually really going to talk about genuinely understanding each other and some things that we can do that will help each other. So what's happening today in veterinary medicine is probably not exactly what you think. That's true whether you're a pet owner or a shelter or rescue group volunteer or staffer, or even a veterinarian. I find among veterinarians that they sometimes don't actually really have a high altitude view of what's going on in their profession, because they've been very focused on providing animal care and keeping their lights on during the recession. So the data that I'm looking at here is from a VPI veterinary economics study. The VPI is Veterinary Pet Insurance, and the magazine Veterinary Economics, who did a study looking at the financial health of veterinary practices as well as of individual vets, and they examined factors that contributed to or harmed that overall health. And I just want to point out that in this chart and some others that follow, these numbers are broken down by gender. And I chose these specifically for that reason, because it's really important for us in the sheltering and rescue world to realize that not only are most new veterinarians women, and most shelter veterinarians are women, but most people in animal welfare are also women. Of course, there are men in all of these areas, I'm just saying predominantly we are going to be dealing with female business owners, female practice owners, female volunteers, rescuers, shelter workers. And it's important to understand that in this case, you can look at this data, nearly half of women-owned veterinary practices are in poor financial health, a third are around a third are average, and only 1/4 are in good shape, which is the exact opposite of what it is for male-owned practices. The gender gap is in place when you look at student debt as well. Female veterinary associates, which is those who don't own the practice but work there as an employee, have an average of $114,000 in personal student debt. And these numbers carry over to business loans as well. Female practice owners have an average of $347,000 in business loans and another $18,000 in credit card debt on their business. That's not their personal credit card debt, that's debt on their business. So when people say veterinarians, should extend credit, they should finance, they should let us pay on time, they should donate more, they should contribute more products and services and do clinics for free, the fact is that may literally be impossible. They may have not one red cent left over to run any kind of financing plan or charitable offerings, or they're going to go out of business. It's not greed, it's reality. Now, another thing that has struck a lot of people is this feeling that veterinary costs have gone crazy out of control recently. And you're right, they have. But there is a reason for that, and it actually has nothing to do with student loan debt or business debt, and it certainly has nothing to do with greed. It has to do with a huge mistake veterinary practices made starting in the 1990s. As you can see, after many years without any price increases, veterinary practice owners finally began raising their prices in 2004. And they raised them 58% since 2004, whereas inflation's only been at 26%. So they were doing a correction. They were catching up to a long period of not raising their prices at all. And you should never do that in business. You should always watch the rate of inflation. You should stay informed about what's going on in your community, in the country at large. So keep your eye on economic factors and raise your rates appropriately and not hugely. But they didn't do this for a number of reasons, some of which we'll discuss. And as a consequence, they caught up in a really big burst, and then, of course, the economy went to pieces. This hurt veterinarians as much or even a little more than the rest of us. And it was also a time when a lot of new technology and medical advances raised the bar on what could be done to help sick or injured pets, but it was all very expensive, cutting-edge kind of stuff. So our perception that veterinarians have raised their prices a lot is not inaccurate, but the reasons behind it, which don't make it any cheaper, but the reasons behind it are not greed, and they are not really what you may assume they are. There were real economic forces at play that have contributed to the situation that the profession is in today. Additionally, if you look at statistics from the American Pet Products Association, which tracks consumer pet spending, you'll see that the rate of pet ownership has increased by 13%. Spending on things like pet grooming, dog walking, pet sitting, and boarding went up by more than 9%. Spending on supplements, vitamins, stuff to make their coat look better, went up by more than 7%. But spending on vet costs went up only by 3.9%. So more people have pets, and they're spending more money on vitamins and grooming and pet sitters, but they've barely increased their spending on veterinary expenses at all, not keeping up with inflation and not keeping up with the rate of acquisition of new pets. And that's an even more dramatic number when I tell you that 3.9% includes veterinary insurance premiums during a period when there was a big increase in the number of owners who had health insurance for their pets. topping all of that off, it turns out that while there are definitely exceptions, most veterinarians are actually not all that good at business. The world's largest veterinary chain, Banfield Pet Hospitals, issues a state of pet health report every year. And what they've found is that fewer than 3% of veterinary practices track how many visits they get. Most don't even do the most basic, simple things to keep their clients or get new ones or remind their existing clients to come in. You know, this is something that I actually think a lot of us in the rescue world can really sort of understand and relate to, because we also find ourselves in the position of focusing primarily on direct animal care and not on our organizational strengths. This is something I've been talking more and more about to rescue groups. And the people who get drawn into veterinary medicine, like the people who get drawn into animal rescue, don't necessarily have organizational and business skills. And this is hurting veterinary practices, it's hurting rescue groups, and it's hurting smaller shelters as well. So it's definitely another common bond that I would say we have. But despite all that, it turns out veterinarians are actually doing quite a lot to help animals in their community. A study done by the University of Colorado, a study so recent it hasn't even been published yet, although you will find a summary of its findings in the resource widget. And in fact, all of these references that I'm citing are in your resource widget if you want to read the complete data. Showed that veterinarians are overwhelmingly providing free and discounted services to pets. You look at these numbers, 99% offer discounts frequently or sometimes, 68% several times a month, 36% several times weekly, 14.5% daily. And that might not match your perception, and there's a reason for that. The reason that you don't know why they're doing this. I've been speaking with vets around the country since January. I started doing this when I was at a veterinary conference in Florida in January. And I've heard two reasons for why this is happening, why you don't know about how much veterinarians are actually giving, time they're giving, services they're giving, products they're giving. One, again and again, I find that veterinarians just don't want to blow their own horn, as one vet said to me. Large veterinary hospitals and a few smaller practices are going to have marketing departments, corporate infrastructure that will do marketing. It's kind of like the difference between a really huge shelter, maybe a shelter with multiple locations that has a development department and a grant-seeking department and, every single organizational department that a corporation would have. But by and large, veterinary practices do not have any kind of marketing department or even a staffer who does marketing work, similar to rescue groups. And they just want to put their heads down and treat their patients. They feel uncomfortable putting their good deeds out for the public eye. Accompanying that, a number of veterinarians said to me that they don't want to tell anyone that they're doing any free or discounted work because they believe that they're going to end up being targeted as suckers, that essentially it's going to draw in more requests for free and discounted work. That is actually not true, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I also want to move on to a few other factors that have contributed to the divide that's arisen between veterinarians, private practice veterinarians, and the shelter and rescue community. First, as shelter pet adoption has increased, which is something I think we're all really happy about, it means more new pets are entering the community who've already been spayed and neutered, they've already been vaccinated, they've already been treated for parasites, and they're already started on heartworm prevention. That means veterinarians are losing the chance to form a relationship with new clients when they get a new pet that they used to have when people would bring pets in from the streets, friends and family, an oops litter, or a breeder. This is a massive change in the dynamic. These pets are already vetted, okay? So that's interfering with veterinarians' ability to form relationships with new clients. And a lot of shelters and rescues know that, and they try to address it. And the most common way they do this is with vouchers or coupons for discounted services at local vets. And sometimes the vets go along with this, and sometimes they don't. And I know a lot of shelters and rescue groups don't understand why some vets don't like these programs. But it's like Groupon, okay? It brings people in for the discount, but they don't become regular clients. They just want the deal. And then they never come back. So these are not long-term relationships that are coming in. These are just people who are coming in to get a discount and then never come back. And last, I have to tell you, and I've actually been surprised myself at how many people in the animal adoption world are surprised by this, but there's a huge controversy going on among veterinarians right now over large shelters that are starting big nonprofit hospitals and competing with the vets in their community. I heard a lot about this when I started talking to veterinarians about their relationships with shelters. It's not happening in every city, every community, but in the places where it is, it's a serious problem for vets who feel that they're being outcompeted by a nonprofit entity or an entity that is, competing unfairly or even fairly, but since they're already struggling economically, it's really hitting them hard, and it's very difficult for them to see themselves as being in partnership with someone who they see as kind of driving them out of business. But, there is another side of this, and this is for the veterinarians who are here. Not working with shelters and rescue groups hurts veterinarians, okay? The public feeling about shelter and rescue pets is overwhelmingly positive. People don't respond well to hearing them badmouthed, even if they themselves don't get their pets there. And there's a public perception among just regular pet owners that vets are greedy and prices are too high. So when they hear a local vet is upset about competition from a shelter or doesn't support low-cost spay-neuter clinics or doesn't encourage their clients to consider adoption, it hurts the public image of that individual vet and of the profession as a whole at the same time. This is a PR problem. This is not so much about reality as it is about perception. Public opinion is, pet adoption has social cachet, adopters are passionate. In the era of social media and online reviews, those feelings combined with that passion and the reach of animal rescue advocates means that when PR blows back on you as a veterinarian, it is going to spread fast and far. It also reinforces a false narrative about what's motivating you. It looks like you just don't like shelter pets and that you're just being greedy. Even though that's a false narrative, it's about perception, not reality, not fact. The wonderful news is that we can help each other. But before I go into those details, I would like to ask a few questions of the audience again, just to help me understand who you are and what's going on. So here we go. If you work in a private veterinary practice, so that's for the 8% of you out there who are from one, does it have a marketing department? Yes, no, you don't know, or it's not applicable. And then submit. So nobody said yes. So apparently I was correct in my assumption that that's a very rare thing. So then my next question, if you work for an animal shelter, does it have a marketing director or a department? Does it have an individual or a department that helps with marketing, whether it's fundraising letters or social media or advertising or community relations? Do you have somebody handling those things for your group? Yes, no, you don't know, or not applicable. And just to remind you, this does not go in the Q&A. This goes right on the screen like the other poll. So almost half of your organizations do. Does that surprise you, Lynn?
Yes, that's interesting.
Yeah. And a little over a third of you, the answer is no. So, okay, that's probably about what I would have guessed. So then I want to ask, if you work or volunteer for a rescue group and a rescue organization, does it have a volunteer, a staff member, or a department that does marketing and advertising media of any kind, So this is for rescue groups. So yes, no, you don't know, or not applicable, and then click Submit. See how I include everyone? So, okay, this is amazing because I'm actually surprised here, but more than half of the rescue groups have someone doing marketing for them, whether it's an individual or a department, and only 15% said no. So that actually did surprise me. What about you, Lynn?
Yeah, that is surprising to me, too. Hey, Christy, I'd like to remind the audience that we will answer your questions at the end of this presentation, which is coming up directly. So if you have some burning questions, please submit them in the Q&A box. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. So, first of all, when we start looking at solutions and how to fix this relationship, can this marriage be saved? Yes. But first, we have to talk. We have to have conversations about these things that I've been talking about here tonight. We have to talk to each other. We have to see things from each other's point of view. The reason for that is not because I live in some kumbaya fantasy. It's because there is absolutely no way to design programs and policies that will work without understanding what the other party in the negotiation wants and needs and how they see the world. We have to do this. This is the fundamental lesson of messaging, communications, marketing, call it what you want, is putting yourself in the other person's shoes, not to make you a good person, but to be effective, to understand what messages will work for them. So if you're a veterinarian and you cannot put yourself in the shoes of the rescue group, which I actually think is a little easier than the reverse, you aren't going to communicate clearly. You're both going to be coming at this, and you're never going to fully understand what the other person is talking about. We need each other, and being on the outs with each other just hurts not only both sides but the animals. We have to fix this for our mutual benefit. So I promised some basic free steps that we can use to do that. So here they are. Don't you like that word, free? First, rescues and shelters. Start shouting from the rooftops about the vets in your community who help with your pets, even if they don't give you free or discounted services or products. Okay? It doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. This is about relationship building and marketing yourself to them as a good partner. Post good reviews to Yelp. Post about them and tag them on social media. Put up signs in your shelter or at your adoption events thanking them. Post to your website about how great they are. Invite them to your events and then share it on social media and your blog with a picture of the vet. In your mailings to your supporters, talk about, how glad you were to see them at your adoption event. Give marketing publicity to them, which costs you nothing. And then you'll see your relationship grow based on that. And once you've been doing this, ask them out to lunch or dinner, or if your budget's really small, coffee, and discuss other ways that you can help promote them. Don't tell them what you want them to do for you. Ask them what you can do for them. Okay? This is a very powerful thing to do. Ask them what would help them. Ask them what they need. Okay? You probably do have resources that you can use on their behalf in exchange for discounted services, but you will not know what those are unless you talk to them. And veterinarians, you can also leave good reviews for shelters and rescue groups on Yelp, post about their adoption and fundraising events to your social media and websites, publicize them in your practices. This makes you look great to your clients and to future clients. And after you've done that a few times, you can contact them and invite them to a clinic tour or out for lunch, dinner, or coffee and discuss ways you can help each other going forward. You can offer to have an adoption event in your parking lot or your waiting area. You can offer to email out to your mailing list about a fundraiser or event they're having. But be clear with them. Tell them what you need, which I would guess is you want more good clients, and they may not really know what a good client is, that you need A and B clients. Explain, communicate with them, have a conversation about what that means, and brainstorm ways they can help you, but you can't do that without talking to each other. And then for the veterinarians who have told me that they don't want to start programs that are public knowledge because they don't want to be inundated with requests for help, why that concern is misguided, okay? And I call it nature abhors a vacuum. Okay, so if people think you don't have a way, a mechanism to help people, they will flood you with requests for help. But when veterinary practices have programs, an established program to help pet owners keep their pets by paying for vet bills or food or supplies, or programs to help shelters and rescue groups in the community help homeless pets, it actually diverts all those requests for free services into the channel of an existing program. You get to say, yes, here, apply for our program, instead of having to say no or agonize through some, embarrassing, complicated, time-consuming conversation to make a case-by-case decision. You have a program. I'm sorry, we would love to help you, but we've spent all the funds in our, Good Samaritan Fund this month. Here, let us, maybe we can work something out for next month. Here, can you fill this out? Or just tell them, yes, here, fill this out and we'll see what we can do. And also, when they see that you're providing services to local rescue groups, shelters, that you're supporting pet adoption, whether they see the pets for adoption in your waiting area or they see big posters with adoptable pets available at local shelters, they will see you as someone who's already contributing. And you're never going to silence everyone. There's always going to be people who demand free stuff. I'm just saying it won't increase it, and it will dramatically decrease it. And it will give you a tool to manage those requests that is going to be a lot less stressful for you to cope with than what you're probably facing now. And, making these efforts to develop some kind of a charitable program in your organization, in your practice, is going to help you in every possible way that it could help you. But you need to make it be publicized and well managed. And people in rescue groups and shelters can probably help you with that, with apparently their massive marketing departments that I wasn't quite aware that the rescue groups even had. So, that is why I really, really recommend that veterinarians, get over this reluctance and realize that this really is going to help you. My last suggestion is, and this will apply mostly to shelters and those half of rescue groups who have marketing expertise, use your media savvy and contacts to help the veterinarians who are helping you by helping them with their marketing. I'm actually suggesting you go to the practices in your community and ask if you can make your marketing department available to them to market their business in exchange for services for the pets, say, in your foster homes. Take the data from this presentation to show them that you understand what they're struggling with and you know that they could use some help. And be willing to work together, establish mutual measurable goals to make sure that you're coming up with a relationship that will work for both of you. I think that you will be amazed at how grateful most veterinarians are to encounter someone who's not a veterinarian who understands the reality of what the field is going through right now. And I know that most veterinarians really do want to help pets. They just are not sure how to do it, and they're a little overwhelmed with what's going on economically in their profession right now. And once you are armed with that information, I think that all of you should be able to have a mutually beneficial relationship. Now, it's time for all of us to have a discussion, and I keep saying let's talk. So we set aside quite a bit of time for questions tonight, and I encourage you, if you haven't already done so, enter any questions, ideas, challenges you're facing, concerns you'd like to discuss into the Q&A window. So let's go ahead and start now.
Let's push the first question to the audience. Just as an FYI, we work with county shelters and have told that the government organizations, they cannot promote individual veterinarians and practices.
Yeah, this is something I hear iterations of all the time. Most of the time, by which I mean actually all of the time, when someone has told me that they can't do certain things because it's a law, when I actually ask somebody to show me the law or the ordinance, they can't. it usually turns out it's a policy. And even if it is a law, laws can be changed. So I think that if you went to I know our municipal shelter has veterinarians from the community who volunteer there, and they thank them on their Facebook page and show pictures of them in their mailings saying, Dr. So-and-so from from such and such clinic was at our adoption event today, doing vaccinations on the adopted pets. It's just news reporting. I think that if you went to your municipality, if you spoke to elected officials who have skin in the game and explained to them the value of this relationship to their budget, that you would suddenly find that those regulations are being interpreted more favorably to what you want to do, or someone who's willing to help rewrite them. Don't feel trapped by this. If you want to run a shelter or a rescue group, you too need to become a better business person, if you will, and learn how to navigate this type of issue. So I don't really think this is the obstacle that you think that it is. Even if you're being told this, I suspect that if you really got on it, you'd find that you can find a workaround for it.
Okay, let's take the next question. How do you address topics where the vet is not up on current info treatment, such as the number of vets who will say euthanize FIV cats, and that they have to be isolated so other cats don't catch it without ticking them off?
I really, here is where I think that diplomacy is called for. I have been asked to come to meetings with some veterinarians who are working with local shelters and rescue groups, and I've provided them with I have, about 15 copies of the Association of Shelter Veterinarians Standard of Care document printed out that I hand out like candy at Halloween. And whatever the issue is that is being addressed, I bring printouts of information from the ASV site, from Maddie's Institute, from anywhere that is credible. Because when you're talking to veterinarians, what you want to be sure to provide them with is information from a veterinary source, not a blog, not me, not a person who agrees with you, but a veterinary source demonstrating that the information that they have been working off of has yielded to more recent research. You want to be very diplomatic and very helpful, not criticize them, not make them feel stupid, not make them feel like they don't keep up, but find somebody in your organization or in your community who's, just really good at working with people, and sit down with them and share this information with them and say, we were hoping that you could help us with this new program. We've got this information from the Association of Shelter Veterinarians. There's a new study done out of Purdue University showing, this about FIV cats. We're really interested in pursuing this. Could we ask you to take a look at this material and advise us? No one's going to be offended by that. No one's going to, someone could get defensive over that. If a veterinarian and you are just not going to see eye to eye, then, move on to a different veterinarian and let the other veterinarian alone. They're not the one. Okay, go on.
Okay. The next question. It occurs to me that it is more likely that vets are careful what they do because they're concerned about their licenses. Pet rescue folks can be very passionate, and that is sometimes not good. How should we approach a local vet? Letters, in person, appointment?
Oh, that is so very, I'm really glad you brought this up, because one of the things that I hear constantly is rescue groups just talking about how angry they are that they have to bring the pets into the vet to get medication. Veterinarians are prevented by law from writing prescriptions for pets they haven't examined. They cannot do it. Okay? This is not your vet being greedy. This is your vet not wanting to get fined and lose their license to practice veterinary medicine, which, by the way, will not help you. So please be respectful of a vet who feels they need to examine the pet before they can dispense medication, or even tell you, they don't know what's wrong with the pet. They don't know that. You bring a pet into a veterinarian, they have seen thousands of animals, that year alone. They are going to know things about that pet that, I'm sorry, we don't know as lay people. I know as much about animals as I'm sure any of you do, and I often have a pretty good idea of what's going on with a pet, but, a veterinarian has seen many more animals than I will ever see in my lifetime. They've got an enormous amount of training, and they have legal restrictions on what they can say or do. So, please be respectful of those things. And how to best approach a local vet. Personally, I like to do things for them first and make them love me. And then I usually call or email and say, we would like to invite you to an event. We would like to take you to dinner. Give them something. Be nice. Try to sound like you're part of a bigger organization, even if you're a very small rescue group. Dress up, bring your whole board in, be helpful and friendly. Say, we would like to help you. We would like to give them an award. Find out something they have done and say, you're our veterinarian of the month. Be smart and use these types of marketing strategies to get the veterinarian to want to meet with you. And then, of course, the other thing is a lot of times your board members, your volunteers, they have friends and family who have veterinarians. You could just say, could you ask Dr. So-and-so if they'd be willing to meet with us? We'd really like to talk to them about ways that we can help each other. But don't always frame it as you asking them for something. So, and actually, I'm going to just say that if you can get a personal introduction from one of their existing good clients, that is the best way to get in with a vet, better than any of these other methods.
Excellent. As a vet, I find the vets who are most vocal against shelter competition are those who are primarily serving underprivileged clients. Do you have a suggestion for managing this conflict?
That's an interesting question, and my experience has actually been different. Mostly I am hearing from veterinarians in higher-end practices who've been complaining, but I'm not disputing that that's true. This is a real conflict, and it isn't going to go away soon because lower-income people are going to mostly go where they can get the best services for the least money because they really don't have a choice. They may love you, they may love their vet, but if they can get the same service done free or for a lot less, they will go to the shelter hospital. But my experience with these shelter hospitals typically is that they are revenue sources for the shelter, and they're often not really serving a lower income population. However, in general, what I would say is that every competitive challenge is going to be different depending on the local economy, who your market is, who the market of your competitor is. And it is true that nonprofit shelter hospitals potentially have a competitive advantage, but smaller practices also have a competitive advantage. They have better continuity of care. It's more personal. They're smaller, and they can change on a dime. It may be that you need to recast who your market is because competition is out there. It will always be there. That's kind of the reality of being in business for yourself. You're going to have to compete. It's probably beyond the scope of what I can present here to really make suggestions on what a veterinary practice facing this challenge could do to turn it around, and I need to know so much more than I know right now. But I do think that we sometimes have to stop thinking in terms of every single solitary thing in this equation is fixed and can't be changed. That's not true. We have to find what we can change and try and shift the dynamic so that we are once again able to compete successfully. And I don't know what that is because every situation is going to be different. But it was a great question. Go on, Lynn.
This next question is similar, only it's turned around to ask about the low-income client. The clients that are low-income or low-cost spay-neuter clinic rescue are typically low-income or on public assistance. How can we encourage them to go to a vet when they simply can't afford the services?
So here's the thing. I hear vets complain constantly that they lose money on every spay-neuter they do. And they also complain that the clients that they get from shelters and rescue groups who give out vouchers are not, what they call A clients. And then but they're complaining anyway that these people aren't coming to them. They're going to the low-cost spay-neuter clinic or the shelter's clinic. And it reminds me of that story of I don't remember now, like a grocery store that put out this gigantic thing of, apples or something, and they were selling them all, and he was bragging to the guy that he loses 3 cents on every apple he sells, but he makes it up in volume. And I often just say to these vets, do you want clients who can't afford to pay you? And do you want spay-neuters that you lose money on? Isn't what you're really saying is that what you want is a channel to get new, good clients? Wouldn't it be better than trying to compete with a spay-neuter clinic that primarily provides services to people who can't afford them, or even people who can afford them but don't want to? Shouldn't you be focusing on how you can bring in great clients who want to pay you and who want this kind of business relationship? Now, again, every community, every market is going to be different, and not every piece of advice I'm giving tonight will apply to every situation. But again, I just encourage people to stop looking at all of these situations like nothing in them can be moved. All the pieces can be moved. You just have to figure out which ones are the most beneficial to you to move, and try and find a better way out of your dilemma than railing against low-cost spay-neuter clinics, because you may have 1,000 good points that doesn't matter because the public doesn't want to hear it. They don't like you for it. Veterinarians, they don't like you for it. Even if you're right, actually that makes them like you even less. So you got to stop this. And you have to find another way around it to preserve the flow of good new clients into your practices that doesn't involve acting as if you don't want to see pets spayed and neutered, because that's how that's coming across now. I say this with love. Okay, go on, Lynn. Oh, I see the word sanity, so that sounds good.
Yes, sanity. I'm a shelter vet that has recently relocated to a new city that is quite progressive. No kill as of recently. Yay! What is a good way to network with rescue groups and other offer volunteer services without being overwhelmed with requests and looking like the bad guy when I need to say no for my own sanity?
Well, normally I suggest working with either a single organization that you have a particularly good feeling about, you like the people, you work well together, or if there's a coalition in your community. I don't know what community you're in, but some of the no-kill communities have a coalition. And, working with the coalition, a lot of times you'll find there's a shelter veterinarian. So I might really suggest that you reach out to any veterinarian who is working with these groups and try and get a good sense of who you might want to work with. I'd also suggest that you look at, I'm pretty sure it was Clinicians Brief, but we shared it on the Maddie's Institute blog too on this, which is at maddiesinstitute.typepad.com. Scroll back. Actually, if you just search for, I'm almost certain it's Clinicians Brief in the search box, it should pull it right up. It's a checklist on how to know what rescue group you should work with. I thought it was a wonderful checklist for rescue groups, and I think that that would probably be your best bet. So, and I am actually answering your question, because once you have a relationship with a group of some kind, then you're kind of insulating yourself against being overwhelmed with requests, because you don't have to say no. You have to say, you know, we are providing our services right now to XYZ group, and we give them all of our time right now. Or say we're giving 70% of our donated time is going to XYZ group, and the other 30% we're doing vaccinations and basic veterinary care for pets of the homeless. It's nature abhors a vacuum. You put something into that empty space, you will find that they actually don't inundate you with requests. To the contrary, it's how you stave them off. And if somebody is just really insistent, well, you can say, okay, give us information about your organization, and when we revisit this for next year or the next fiscal year, we'll contact you and see how we might be able to work together. You say no by saying yes. It won't work with 100% of the requests, but it does work with almost all of them, and really that's about as good as it gets in this world. So, and I have great hopes for your sanity. Go on, Lynn.
Okay, the next question. Any specific great vet clinic marketing examples or tactics for getting that client in who got a fully vetted pet from the shelter and who might also be skipping annual exams in favor of just low-cost vaccines?
Yeah, this is a really great question. Again, a tiny bit beyond the scope of this. I'm working on a presentation, not a sheltering presentation. I'm talking about veterinary marketing. So maybe keep an eye on, follow me on Twitter, at Christy Keith on Twitter, and you'll see when it's ready to roll out. But, I think that this is something where what I'd want to stress, again, is relationship building with shelters and rescues in your area, getting access to their list of adopters and, quite honestly, their high-value donors, and marketing to them and reaching out to them with some of the educational messages. There's a lot of campaigns and initiatives in veterinary medicine right now. There is Dr. Marty Becker, who I work for, is doing his Fear-Free initiative. Catalyst Council is doing, and also the feline practitioners are doing some great things trying to put education out on both how to get cats to the vet without stressing them so much and the value. Cats are brought to the vet far less than dogs. So, but these messages, and AVMA has got their I think it's the Healthy Pets Partnership. All these messages are out there. You can kind of piggyback off their educational materials, but first build the relationship with the shelters and rescue groups and aim your marketing at A clients if that's what you're looking for. If your need is really good clients, then don't chase everyone. Target to the client you want, that you need for the balance in your business. No veterinary practice is all A clients. But if you don't have a certain percentage of A clients, and for all of you who are not veterinarians out there, an A client isn't a rich client. An A client is a client who is sensible and who communicates clearly with their veterinarian and who understands the difference between the need to bring a pet in because they're sick and need to be examined and your vet just being greedy. Those are A clients. Okay, they may, in fact, have the lowest income of any client who sets foot in your clinic, but they have a good attitude and common sense. That's the A client. When we talk about C clients, often they are driving brand new cars, but they won't spend a nickel on their dog or cat. Those are bad clients. So this is not about your class or your income. This is about your attitude toward your pet and an understanding of the value of veterinary medicine. I'm glad that I thought of saying that because I would not want you to think differently. So anyway, I'm going to kind of move on with that, but just think in terms of relationship building, not, and then trying to access those people who fall into the marketing category that you need for the balance of your business. And watch for my upcoming presentation.
I'm sorry, Christy, this is a related question. How can we convince vets that the market is moving towards upper-income pet owners with lots of money to spend on their pets, and not worry about the smaller market segment who are price-conscious and need cheap services from shelter hospitals?
Yeah, I think that if you really look at the dollars that are being spent in in pet spending today, I didn't even include the pet food statistics, but people are spending billions, tens of billions of dollars on their pets every year, and it has never gone down. Through the entire recession, not 1 year did pet spending go down. Okay, it has increased massively every year. Veterinarians have not done a good job of capturing their share of that spending. And I think that the entire veterinary profession is focused on that right now, and I hope to see that improving. So, part of it, I don't know if it's so much about upper income pet owners. It's about understanding your market. If you have set up a veterinary practice in a lower income area, you can still be successful, but you have to be smart and understand how to serve and price and market to your community in a way that keeps your business open. If you don't have a marketing plan, a business plan that is suitable to your community, you either need to move or you need to change your plan. So, some of this is just really about being sensible. I don't want veterinarians to just be about providing services to high-income people, because every pet deserves good veterinary care. And it's also great if there is a low-cost alternative, shelters, clinics, whatever, that provide care for pets. And for people who can afford it, I also think pet insurance is a really valuable tool that personally I couldn't live without anymore. But the overall message that I have is examine your market and make smart decisions about your market, not chasing only a fantasy. Maybe you don't live in a community with a lot of well-off people and you need to market to lower-income people. Can you still compete with shelter hospitals? Very likely you can, but again, it's a challenge to being good at business, which, as we've seen, not all veterinarians have been.
Here's a question that we get a lot. How do we get the vets to understand that a low-cost spay-neuter clinic run by a nonprofit is a good thing and not taking business from them?
Yeah, it is a good thing. It's not taking money from them. It is taking business from them, because in their, all of those people, when you first bring your pet in for their first visit, when you acquire a new pet and you go to a low-cost spay-neuter clinic, and those often also give vaccines or parasite prevention, it is stopping a flow of new patients to veterinarians. In a lot of cases, those are not clients that veterinarians need a lot of in their practice anyway, because they're either well off but don't see the value of spending on veterinary medicine, so they prefer to go to a low-cost alternative, or they don't have the resources and they need subsidized care from a charity. And if those are the case, then I think that veterinarians should focus on, clients that will be good for their business. Let the low-cost spay-neuter clinics have it. Have fundraisers for that spay-neuter clinic. Market yourself to well-off people in your community. Cast the local spay-neuter clinic as something that is like a charitable endeavor that you support, and make sure that you're communicating appropriately. Get on the local radio or do a column in the local newspaper. Don't be defensive. Don't explain. Just demonstrate the value of good veterinary care, continuity of care, the relationship, a lifetime. Dr. Marty Becker always calls it only in veterinary medicine do you have true cradle-to-grave care, because in human medicine, you have an obstetrician, and then you have a pediatrician, and then you have a family doctor, and then you have the specialist in the geriatric and the nursing home, and then you die and you go to the funeral, to the funeral home. But in veterinary medicine, they see you from your first day and they bring you through to the last, and that is a very precious relationship. Now, as more of us move, it's like a James Herriot kind of dream that doesn't really happen anymore, but people still crave it, and they still like that bond they have with their veterinarian. I know when I recently moved from California to Michigan, leaving my vet behind was it was horrible. And I burned through vets in Michigan. I went to 6 different vets before I found one I liked. So, it's an important relationship factor. So yeah, I think this is really true. It is a good thing. You should support it. But again, you have to be smart, and you have to learn how to make lemonade out of lemons sometimes.
Okay, Christy, we'll take one more question here, and then we'll conclude for the evening. I want to remind everybody that the rest of these questions that we didn't get to tonight will be on our website within a week or two. So check back there, and we'll have Christy answer them for you. So how often would you recommend doing a promotional thank you or other acknowledgement of a veterinary practice that helps our organization?
Obviously, every time they do something that's a one-off, like if they help you with an adoption event or help you promote a fundraiser, something. So obviously, every time, at least once. Additionally, if it's what I would watch for, it's not so much a hard and fast rule of how often, but I would watch for those landmark moments that are the particularly charismatic pet or the great story. You can often, just watch the pets that are coming through and try and make it seem organic. Like, don't necessarily go out there and say, here's a pet, thanks to Dr. So-and-so for helping us with her. But say, Susie, came into our rescue with this problem and a broken leg, and she'd been dragged behind a car, and all these terrible things happened. Thank God we were able to count on, Dr. Smith and Angie, the vet technician at XYZ Hospital. Without them, they've been providing such loving care for Susie and blah, blah, blah. That essentially you're making it a story about Susie, and they're kind of supporting players. But the picture is from their hospital, and you mention them, and you tag them in a social media post, or you link to their website in a blog post. You make it just feel like you're telling a story. But part of the story is these are great people, and they should be your vet too. But you don't have to make it forced. So there is no hard and fast rule. You could do that every day if you had enough great stories. People wouldn't get tired of hearing them. But if it's just a question of kind of a routine acknowledgement, I would say once a month is about all your audience is going to be comfortable hearing. And it looks like we have one more there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question, but it is a comment. And so it says, thank you for saying the mutual program should be measurable. In many communities, veterinarians offer complimentary post-adoption examinations and might not know the impact in both the short and long term.
Oh, I'm really, yeah. Go ahead.
To that comment, and it's the same person who asked. The comment continued. The communication is key. Veterinarians can notify shelter if there's a health problem. Veterinarians can keep pets in the home. Look for long-term relationships. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Yes, I agree with all of that. And I didn't really talk as much about setting goals that are measurable. I referred to it, but I didn't really discuss it. Nobody asked any follow-up. But I think it's really, really critical that that rescue groups and shelters, track their adoptions and the health statistics on their organization and their pets, and do follow-up and make sure that their programs are working at peak efficiency. And one of those programs is the programs you have with the private practice veterinarians in your community. And you should find out what they want, they want 6 new good long-term clients a year or whatever it is they want, some measurable thing, and you want, a 40% discount on surgery, whatever it is, but have it be measurable, and then you should set up, don't wait for there to be a problem. You should have every quarter or every 6 months, or at least annually, sit down and see how well you met each other's goals, see how it's working for you, and find out if things have changed or things didn't work as you hoped they would. Because as long as there's that relationship, as long as you're communicating and speaking with each other, then you can change things, tweak things, find new creative ways to work together. But if you're just taking and they just feel taken advantage of, I guarantee you it will blow up in your face, and the ones who pay for it are, unfortunately, our animals. So let's see. Catalyst connection. Okay, so here's a link.
I think the audience, it's been up there for a few minutes, so I think they probably have gotten that. And they're asking me to push one more. Bear with us here. We're just about finished, everybody. In my practice, I focus on other sources of income that serve my patients, like dental care, so I can embrace that my local shelters already vet adoptable pets. This helps me maintain a positive focus on shelters and not blame them for taking away the business.
Yeah, this is what I mean just by being smart. This is something we all need to learn. Rescue groups, shelters, and veterinary practices need to become smarter and develop our organizational skills to a higher level to compete in the world we live in today. And all of us need to do that, and we should help each other do it. If you're a shelter with a marketing department and you want something from the local vets, offer them your services in exchange for theirs. It is a fair exchange. It will help everybody. This is just plain smart. So I really agree with the sentiment behind that. The specifics can change, but the sentiment is absolutely true.
Excellent. Thank you, Christy. That's the end of our event. We want to thank Christy and all of you for your time. Please click on the link to take our survey. It might have been blocked by your pop-up blocker, or it may be on a different screen. But don't worry if you can't see it. We'll send the link to you, and we would really appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to respond. Make your plans to join Maddie's Institute on August 28th for the last webcast of our summer series, How Animal Shelters Can Treat and Prevent Heartworm in Dogs, with Dr. Brian DeGangi. The archived version of tonight's webcast will be available soon. For more learning opportunities, please visit our website at www.maddiesinstitute.org. Thanks again for sharing your evening with us. Good night.